All right. The name is Andy. I go by Mr. Andy. As my recent brand has been developing over time, Mr. Andy. So, currently my focus is on the area of finance, right? The area of business advisory and consultancy, right? Apart from my day-to-day job, which is related to I work for a pension fund. Apart from that, but my main interests are in the areas of investment and finance and business advisory.
Okay. No, that's really cool because I actually wanted now to talk about your professional and entrepreneurship journey. So it's very good that you mentioned where you work and what you do. I know you do a lot of work around business consulting and also investments. So when did this start and where is it now?
Well, the start really was a thought, right? The beginning of the journey, because I used to do a lot of work around NGOs, right? NGOs and various campaigns, right? And I reached a point where I wondered, how am I really going to finance the kind of life that I want to live, right? So the basic ideology started from there. So I knew that I need to be entrepreneurial at some shape or form. I have to be entrepreneurial. So then that kind of thinking came about. Then I wondered, probably what do I like doing? And I realized my love for people doesn't change, right? So whether you're speaking about NGOs, whether you're speaking about business, I realized that my love for people, I just genuinely love people, right? Whether you're talking about old people, young people, just being with someone and talking to them and laughing to them, that really brings me energy. Right? Even if one person makes me angry right now and another person comes through a minute later, I simply switch up and I smile. Right?
Which is something that is very difficult to do. So kudos to you.
Yeah, so, and I realized that it's the more I meet different people, I realized it's not actually a common trait, right? And I realized
it's not.
Look, since I love people, why don't I look for business interests related to that? Right? So it slowly but surely, this train of thought led me to the area of consulting. Even though I have been in a couple of businesses, whether network marketing, whether trading, whether it's selling products, whether it's mission. I've tried. I realized that my real love and passion is the area of
Yeah, I really like what you said about, I'll just reiterate it because it's so important. Even if one person completely pisses you off and the next makes you laugh, you kind of dwell on the happy emotion. It is not easy. A lot of people, they'll go through like 20 happy things in a day, but then that one thing, it just completely ruins the entire day. And I'll admit, to a certain extent, I'm still a lot of people. So yeah, inspiring me to kind of get out of my mind. So
at the same time, it has its pros and its cons, right? Because now, what tends to happen with people like me is that these kind of people are now what society refers to as, the heroes. And these heroes, people always think they are fine, right? These people these people are always smiling and everybody thinks they're fine. The dangerous part with being someone like that now becomes, it's a balancing act, because now it seems like you need someone to make you happy, type of a thing. Right? Because now, if one person makes you angry and the next makes you happy, what tends to happen if you do not understand this dynamic, you always look for someone around. You cannot be alone. So I had to struggle with that growing up until until life pushed me to be alone. When I was alone, then I could realize, I cannot always expect people to meet me halfway. Sometimes I need to find a way to be happy. I need to look for things that make me happy, right? So,
Yeah, that's very true. I feel like because you do feel the negative emotions, it's important to have an outlet, and it can't always be other people. That's the mistake the majority of us make. Okay, so back to your professional journey. So what has been the challenges so far, you'd say, at the beginning compared to now? Are you handling it better now? Because obviously there are challenges. I can't even ask you if there are challenges. I know they are. Do you think you're handling them better now than when you started?
Professional journey referring to business side?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the number one problem when a business conversation is had is always money. right? So let's not kid ourselves. It's always the conversation of money. If the conversation is not money, then the person's not really talking about business. So yes, I've made some money, but obviously not to the level that satisfies me. The unfortunate part is that consulting in Botswana is still very, very much at its infant stage, right? An average business person, before they start a business, they would rather experience the downfalls within business, but they would not seek advisory before starting, right?
Yeah.
So currently, because the industry is in its infant stages, the number of clients that we get as consultants are very, very limited. So I would get money from clients who are simply registering companies, right? But that doesn't satisfy me. Yes, a client would pay me to register a company, but most companies fail within that phase of starting, right? And most companies in the country cannot pay their annual returns, which is, I'll call it the tax that is due every year end from the start of that company. But most companies cannot pay, and they end up shutting down within the first year of production, right?
Yeah.
And it's a sad reality, and because I really want to see Botswana businesses becoming successful, but the problem is that most entrepreneurs, they really do not see the use of advisory. If someone wants to sell clothes tomorrow, they simply go ahead and they look for a supplier. They will not see the sense in seeking advice before they start. They would start and then they would find a way around it.
Yeah, I'll say guilty. Probably because, you don't have access to information that much, but I guess it's our responsibility to know that we have to consult before we start. Once you have an idea, most of us were paranoid thinking, it's going to get stolen, or we just don't know to seek. We're just ready to go, or we're thinking it's the next big thing, which really can be a mistake. I agree with you. So on the topic of funds, have you ever tried to source funding from local funding bodies, your CEDAS, your YDF, and what was that process like? Because it's harrowing for most people.
Personally, no, because funding should not be a solution to many people, right? Sadly, what happens in our country is that people see funding as an income, right? People don't see funding as a loan. You see, if people had a perspective that seeking funding is like going into the bank and registering for a credit card, if people saw things that way, people will be discouraged to seek funding. They'll be more encouraged to find business models that can make their businesses profitable, right? But you see, here's the thing with it. You see, a business plan, the people who came up with the word business plan, they had the right idea. But now the problem came with people spreading that message, because now a business plan has become a template that you download from Google.
Yeah.
Right? And it simply has an executive summary, there's that, sales, what. It's simply a document that you download and you populate and you send to someone. But that's not the idea. The idea of a business plan is to plan for your business, right? It's a business plan. You plan for your business. That's the idea. You see, that table of contents, it's a train of thought that every entrepreneur needs to take. Now, the problem that has occurred right now, what's happening is that now a lot of people have forgone the business plan type of thinking. They have now gotten into the funding type of thinking.
Yeah.
And what happens with the funding type of thinking is that I want to start manufacturing T-shirts from scratch, right? I want to have a farm that from the cotton and whatnot, processing plant and whatnot. So I have this beautiful idea. The first thing I do, I think funding.
Yeah.
And that's the problem. I do not think business plan. I do not think plan for my business. I do not think business model. No. I first think funding. And the reason I think funding is that in my head I'm thinking, but funding is free cash, right? I'm being funded by 10 million pula, and in my request I'll be adding company vehicle, I'll be adding salary, I'll be adding, you see, so the way I view it, I'll be viewing funding as a source of income for myself before I start business, which is a completely wrong mentality. So personally, I did not seek funding because of this reason. I've been spending a lot so long thinking of businesses and modeling those businesses. So, clients would approach me, and because I focus a lot of time with one of my biggest clients, he gave me enough money for me to get the car that I have, right?
Yeah.
So those kind of people believe in the concept of business advisory and consulting, because through that advisory, we managed to rebrand the company, and now he's making more sales than he used to. But when he first approached me, he said, Andy, look, I need funding. And I told him, I'm like, my G, you don't need funding.
Yeah.
You just need to make more sales. That's all. You don't need funding. Because a typical entrepreneur, they are thinking, if I get more money, I will make more sales.
Yeah.
That is so not true. There are countless businesses that have been funded and have lost that money. In fact, are out of business.
Yeah, as we speak.
Countless companies have done that. A lot of people have mortgaged their houses to fund their businesses, and they've lost those books. Like it's happening even as we speak right now. I'm sure there's a case right now. There's a house being auctioned. There's a business being closed. Recently, I saw one football club. They're selling its equipment and its football T-shirts and whatnot. It's happening. Just because you got funding does not prove your business concept.
Yeah, no, I'll totally agree. I'll say that I had to learn that the hard way, but I never call it the hard way because I always say God redirects me. It was that, like, there was an idea and I knew the target market, how it could help. I was more focused on how it will help people. And then the thing obviously was funding, applying for funding, and the reason why we didn't get it was because of some technicality. It almost seemed so silly that I had to reevaluate, right? And I think reading might solve, for most people, might solve this problem, because I read the Lean Startup and then I started learning about the concept of the minimum viable product. Why not make something, then take it to the people you intend to make it for? Then they test it, tell you how it works. Like, we're even looking funding and setting up this thing before we even knew how people would respond to that. Because it's something they don't know. It's like biomass stoves is this cool. We're trying to get them to cook with it. That's like a different ball game. It's like, why have you ever tried to get someone to cook with it, to tell you how it works, what they think of it? We were thinking of setting up before we even got to that part. So I completely agree with you, and everything you're saying, I'm like just reliving my mistakes and some that I'm currently making. But that's why conversation is so important. Yeah. And now I want to talk a bit about investments, because that's your area. I think whenever, and the way you do it as well, whenever we think of that, we're thinking of the stock market, right? How can we approach that with the willingness of Botswana to invest in startups? Because that's the thing. I know maybe it's a topic that will pivot into venture capitalists and whatever, but I don't think there are many even funding bodies or investors willing to fund startups, good ideas, and probably see them to the level at which they can benefit to. What type of investing do you think you primarily focus on, and what do you think can be done to make us America in a way where startups and great ideas, there are always investors waiting to fund those ideas because they could quickly turn into $1 million ideas? And they're very brilliant tech guys here, by the way.
Yeah. So here's the main problem that I'm seeing, right? Unfortunately, Africa has rushed into this fourth industrial revolution frenzy, right? We are jumping into the fourth industrial revolution, but we haven't really, how should I say, really nurtured and milked the third industrial revolution, right? So manufacturing in Africa is still a big issue. Especially countries like Botswana, we import too much. It's amazing the kind of things that we import, right? And the kind of thing that you rarely see it made in Botswana. Rare. It's very, 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 very rare for you to see a product that has been made in Botswana. And a lot of products that have been made in Botswana, they have not lasted that long, right? The reason I'm mentioning this is because when the conversation of fourth industrial revolution comes in, and when you link it to investments, I normally see this, right? That you see, when you when you first think of investing, you need to your first thought is not the stock market. The stock market is more of a passive investment, something that you invest with the profits that you made, right? You don't
Right.
Your primary investment cannot be the stock market, right? Because the returns, it gives you dividends. You get paid maybe like twice a year, right? So you cannot live off of that. You have rent to pay, you have water bills, you have electricity bills, you have groceries. So you cannot pay with the money that comes from the stock market. The stock market is simply a long-term investment, just money that is stacking up somewhere, right?
Yeah.
So it cannot be your primary investment. Your primary investment should be your business, right? It should be the services that you provide. That's your primary business. Now, what has happened is that the conversation of private equity, the conversation of having venture capitalists around, that comes way later. It's the same conversation that I'm starting with, that I'm saying we rushed into this fourth industrial revolution frenzy, right? We should have focused on manufacturing, because a lot of businesses are not investable, right? If like you see a lot of Botswana entrepreneurs saying they are manufacturing water, for instance. They simply package water, they stick their brand, they have their label there, and they see that as a business. And most of these businesses, they are not investable.
Yeah.
There is no real business there. Like, I mean, if an investor will need to look at their financials, right? And they look at the business model, and they'll be like, okay, so what really is the business? And they'll be like, no, I'm selling water to people. So you're competing with O3, you're competing with this, you're competing. What really is your business? What's your edge? Show me the business. Nothing, right? Who are you selling to? Who's your target market? You see, you cannot answer any of these questions, which clearly shows most of these businesses are not investable. You say, someone will be selling face masks, and they call it a business. Someone will be selling bicycles. They'll be reselling. There's so many entrepreneurs in Botswana who call themselves entrepreneurs, but they're really passing time. And the proof that they're passing time is the results they produce. Yeah. Right? Because you rarely see a business that has grown, that is a 10-year-old business, 20-year-old business, and it's a Botswana business. You rarely see things like that, and which shows us something that is very critical. That's what I'm saying. But when we are jumping into creating apps, jumping into website development. We are jumping into the fourth industrial revolution, but we have not milked behind the previous revolution. We have not milked the previous era, and because we have not, most of the businesses that are starting are not investable. You see, real businesses, investable businesses, are businesses that would probably manufacture things like chocolate. They would see a real lasting business that can employ, that have systems and structures in place, that export. You see, those businesses, an investor can come all the way from India and be like, I can park my money here, I can see where my money is going and how my money is going to come out. It's clear.
Yeah.
But if I look at your business that you're selling water and I invest in 150,000 pula, how am I going to get that 150,000 pula back, and in how long? Can you prove? Do you have contracts in place that will ensure that I get my 150 back plus interest?
Yeah.
Most of the businesses are not investable because they cannot answer the question of net present value, right? How the proper IRR in this investment is how much? What's my return, right? And with every year, can I get a return of 10% on the money that I've invested? And can you prove it? It's one thing to say, yes, you will get 10% every year from the money you've invested, but can you prove it, right? Show me the cash flow, and is it accurate, right?
No, Yeah, I completely agree. So 2 points that I picked out. Speaking of the fourth industrial revolution, I remember being really annoyed when the World Economic Forum, with all the forums they were holding in Africa, that's where the conversation started about Africa leapfrogging to the fourth industrial revolution. Just like we kind of leapfrogged the, what do you call these, landlines? Most people didn't have them, and then we jumped straight to the smartphones, and most have them now. Most people in Africa have those. I think they were looking at it from that kind of model, and I remember thinking it was so flawed. But of course, I was not in the stage, and I don't think even at the time anybody would have wanted me on that stage, given where I was. But I was like, I think what they're discussing is so flawed. I don't think it's the same thing. And now back to manufacturing, I was thinking, we don't even, well, you can correct me if I'm wrong, we don't even manufacture matches, things like that. But then the problem is, do you think that if we were to make things, because people have tried to make like cooking oil, things that people use on a daily, and things that are actually making these companies rich, because Botswana buy on a daily, over 99% of the business that people get here that make them billions and millions, they get from Botswana, right? So how do we bridge that gap between actually manufacturing things that we know are used on a daily and getting people to consume them? Because that's a different ball game. You can make your cornflakes, but people are going to buy Kellogg's. How do we effectively compete with that? What do you think the problem is there?
So let me first start with the point of smartphones that you brought in, right? So, for instance, that's a very not so smart argument.
Oh, but they were making it, I promise.
Like it's a terrible argument, because for one, load shedding in Africa is something else. I mean, how do you even have a conversation of saying we want to roll out smartphones, internet connection, all these things, and there's no electricity?
Yeah.
Like, you see, it boggles my mind, this leapfrogging mentality.
Mm-hmm.
It's so childish. I mean, it's like I'm eating porridge, and if KFC comes in, I'm leaving this porridge and I'm eating KFC. Then if this KFC, I don't really feel it, you're wasting food.
Yeah.
Like, then you see cornflakes and you're just gonna take 2 spoons. Yeah. By the time you stop and you're full and you take a look back, you have not exhausted anything. You are simply jumping from one thing to another, and Africa is not developing.
Yeah.
Right? And it's amazing how our leaders don't notice. Africa is stagnant. We look like we are moving, but we are literally going. Look, right now, it's hard for you to transport goods from Botswana to Egypt. Where are the roads? Right?
The infrastructure.
The infrastructure is horrible. If you want to go for holiday and you're flying from Botswana to Malawi, the expense is crazy. It's crazy expensive to fly around Africa. And you see, to me, these small things are what is the key to developing Africa. Because today, it's hard for us to earn through YouTube, right? Botswana, we are not eligible. And so, what's the point of me having a smartphone if I can't earn from it?
That's facts.
What? You see, Africa needs to understand something that is very important, that you cannot go at the pace of America. America has its infrastructure, it has it's manufacturing its own things. Right now, when speaking about fourth industrial revolution, they have all those things covered. And we are speaking the same language. Come on, Africa, are you being serious?
Yeah.
Right?
No, I will say, my point was also like, how do you even bring up the conversation of AfCFTA, like the African Continental Trade Agreement, when you're not addressing infrastructure? It seems like the infrastructure was developed to take the goods out of Africa. How do you seriously, with a serious face as leaders, have a conversation of we should trade? It's like fluffy stuff. It's so annoying to me. It's like the things that they say because it's the next cool thing to say. We don't need them to be cool. We need them to be effective, right?
Exactly.
And how do they address infrastructure such that what you just said, it's not so expensive to move goods from here to Egypt or to anywhere else or to fly anywhere else? If they're not addressing that, this is just pipe dreams. They're just being cool because it's the next thing to say.
Exactly. And the conversation of infrastructure now feeds onto your second point, the second question that you're asking about the cooking oil and how now if we produce, if I'm producing bath soap, how now do I get my bath soap across the country?
Yeah.
It's the same conversation of infrastructure. Now, if infrastructure is not there, whatever you build, there's no point in building it, right?
Yeah.
So you have your smartphone, but you can't earn from it because there's no infrastructure for you to earn. And the same thing with the bar soap, because if the infrastructure is not built, you will have 1,000 bars of soap in your house, and they cannot move. Because number one, the route to which those those bars of soap would go. Just the transport and logistics part, you have not thought of that, right? And where they would be sold is another problem. For instance, one conversation I always have about people producing, whether it's sugar, cooking oil, sunlight type of products, these liquid soaps, is look, if sunlight liquid is cheaper than my cost of production here, and when I'm producing my local soap, and by the time my soap hits the shelves, and it's more expensive with like a 2 pula, obviously people will not buy my soap. It's basic. I mean, it's not even I should support local conversation. It's not even about that. Oh, buy Africa. No, when I get into the store, I do not pick up biscuits and I turn them over and I look made in India or made in Botswana. I don't care where this product has been made. All I care about is how much it costs. Yeah. Right. So, if Botswana now we see the need for us to produce this, and I can see many Botswanas are trying, right? A lot of Botswana are trying to do jam. They are trying to manufacture shoes. They're trying this and they're trying that. But because the infrastructure does not allow, there is no point. You are simply going to produce those few jars, and there is no major contract, because what carries products is contracts, right? So you need a major contract. Let's say government would buy probably a couple of jams from you, and they'll be using your jam in their different conferences, their different parliamentary sessions. That contract per month is what will keep you now, and you will be able to generate a business case for you to get an investor. You see, that's where now you create an investable business through these contracts that you are generating. Now you are building a system. You have a manufacturing site. You have a warehouse. You are having these things because these are contract. You have shelf space, right? Now, if government does not make certain products expensive when they import, right? This is where the conversation of tariffs comes in, conversation of embargo comes in, right? These conversations, they help the local producer, right? So if my toilet spray is cheaper than the toilet spray produced by, X and Y company, definitely when Botswana get into choppies, the first thing they will see when they look at these different toilet sprays, they'll go for the cheaper one. And if the cheaper one is mine, I will definitely make sales, right? So the third part where Botswana is right now, it's unfortunate that the infrastructure does not allow us to fully maximize on the industrial revolution, right? It's unfortunate that we can't fully maximize on manufacturing, simply because the stores will not buy because our products are too expensive. They would rather buy Lifebuoy. They would rather buy this and that because it's cheaper for them, and they can produce in bulk and it's cheaper. So we will not get the contracts because it's more expensive for us. But if the government raises the tariffs and imports are more expensive than locals, definitely locals will make more money.
Yeah, but also to kind of like put it out there for local producers and manufacturers that we also expect quality. And I know it sounds like it's a tad conversation as if we say they're not making quality, as if anything local seems like we're saying it's not quality, which is not what I'm saying. But I really don't want to eat your canned beans and the crap, so I think kind of like finding a way to test what people would like, not making this whole product and then putting it in shops and then we're just forced to buy it or coerced into buying it because it's local. So I think that's also a conversation people, especially us who are trying to manufacture things, should be looking at. How do we make sure that we produce quality products that will be appeasing to look at and to use? Because it's not only that all gold tomato sauce, it's like traditional, we grew up with it. It's that even the alternatives in the shops that are not from Botswana, that are from wherever they are from, they don't come close, right? So you always want that one. So there's also that conversation that we should kind of stress. I think we should talk about entrepreneurs now. I think I mentioned quality, which it addresses my next question. What they should know above all else about what it takes to be effective and for longevity. You just mentioned that you don't know a single company. Well, we know InnoLead, but we don't know like other companies, maybe manufacturing and whatever, that are 10 years old and are Botswana owned. So what does it take for longevity, you think, and to be effective? And that should be an advice for young entrepreneurs, given that we do get the tenders, we do buy the Mercedes-Benz, the BMW with the money we get from SEDA, and not everything, the GD6 that people are doing. But that's just one aspect of the problem.
Look, unfortunately in Botswana, we do not have, what should I say, the entrepreneurial spirit, right? A lot of entrepreneurs do not have the spirit of entrepreneurship. And because, you see, the spirit of entrepreneurship is about, you see, if you watch documentaries of people like Elon Musk, you will understand what the spirit of entrepreneurship is. You see, someone who day and night, they live and breathe that business. And day and night they think quality. How can I make this product or service, better? Like Facebook. You see how Facebook has developed over the years. Some of us have used it from the beginning. See, that is the spirit of entrepreneurship. People who sit down with the idea and they think about it day and night, right? So unfortunately in Botswana, what happens is that we think about what would feed us. That is the problem, right? And it's the same mentality that I was giving earlier about funding, right? When you think of a business, the first thing you think about is funding. And the reason why you think funding is because you want to eat, right? And you see, it's not wrong, but it is not right for the country. Because more and more people rush to go to consultants who say, I will help you get this funding, money from SEDA. I will help you do this. More and more people are rushing towards that. And these consultants are not realizing that they're destroying the country. We are destroying the spirit of entrepreneurship, because now what tends to happen is that after this person gets funding, after they start that business, because they are not passionate at all about that business, they simply chow the money, or the business runs for 2 to 3 years. After that, they leave it and they go start something else, right? And it happens all the time. And some businesses not like that feeling. No, it's just that the entrepreneur got bored. They just got bored, and they'll be like, business, bora. I just need something else, something interesting. This thing I just started because I needed the money, but now I'm going to do my passion. And that's how they normally speak. And you see, what I would want for entrepreneurs in our country, look for the passion, the spirit. You see, right now I'm educated with quite a number of businesses, but because I do not have the passion, I do not go into those businesses. And we need that kind of discipline. Don't go into a business because it has money. I agree. And it's hard. It's very hard for people to do, because there's something called easy money. You check, like this tendering thing. It's easy money, so it's very tempting. It's very tempting for people to do. When people think, okay, now, but I think I need money, and because I need money, let me just do this.
Yes.
You see that at that point when you see, let me just, you have sold.
You're so far off. Yeah.
You are sold out. You have sold your soul to money. Because your entrepreneurial spirit is gone. It's because you have now given your spirit so that you can get the money. And a lot of entrepreneurs are going through that. A lot of entrepreneurs are not passionate about their businesses. They do not sit down for a year and plan. You rarely see an entrepreneur who has an idea today and says, you know what, I need to do some research and development. I need to speak to consultants. I need to look for partners. I need people who can teach me the business. I need to work within a bulb manufacturing site before I can start a bulb world. You understand? Like we need entrepreneurs who have the spirit, not entrepreneurs who are hungry.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And there are 2 points that you mentioned. I'll talk about Elon Musk and then the point you mentioned about tendering. There was a video I watched of him that completely just blew my mind. I think he was still rich like he is now, but he hadn't yet taken a spaceship to space and have it land back. And the very first time they tried that, there was this video of him immediately after takeoff. Then they went outside to see if it will come back and land back, and he was so terrified. Like his face, like watching it, and it took I think a few seconds delay, and he was like, oh my god, this is bad, this is so bad. And you could see what you're talking about, this, but you could just see the nervousness. And I remember thinking, I want to do something that makes me feel like this, because you could see he had done his best. Obviously he's a genius and he had manufactured this thing that nobody else does, but he was so terrified, and you could see it in his face. It's like, I was like, if something I'm doing does not make me feel like this, I don't think I'm doing the right thing. And now to the tendering thing. When I was living in Johannesburg, I knew two guys who did not know each other, completely did not know each other. They had both they were working at the mine now for companies, but they had both tried to go out and do their own thing. And in construction, both of them, never met each other, never knew each other. They made the same exact mistake. I happened to know both of them from different areas of life. And it was mind-boggling for me, someone telling me the story, and I had just had the same exact story from someone else. I was like, this is why we fail. It gave me an idea of this is why we fail, because they all took the money they used to get the million Pula contract, and they both owned like Benzes, and they rented houses in Gabs. I was like, how are you doing the same exact thing? So yeah, without the passion, without knowing why you're doing something, I agree with you. It's bound to fail.
Yeah, it's very sad what's happening in the country. And you'd hope that with I always blame leaders, right? When there's a problem, I always blame the leader, and I'll always blame government for this. And it's unfortunate that we don't have a government that loves its people. And by love, I'm not talking about people who know how to campaign and speak to people. I'm talking about I'm talking about the entrepreneurial spirit, right? The spirit of patriotism, right? Yeah. And it's only when it comes from the very top that if a message like this, with this intensity, comes from the top, trust me, the spirit will flow within the country.
Yeah. No, it definitely will. And I'd agree with that point too. It's like they're doing things because it's the new thing to do. Kind of going back to my point earlier, they just started saying they're going to limit tenders from foreigners and give them only to locals. They have done that mostly. Look what has happened, right? And it's like they don't know really how to invest in the right things and the things that drive. And they will be the first to say that we expect spoon feeding, and yet they know that for their campaigns to be successful, they depend on the spoon feeding. They depend on us requiring being spoon fed, because someone who just wants things for free, you've got that vote. You just have to buy them alcohol, which is what's happening.
Yep.
Yeah.
Sadly. Well, 10 years is a very small horizon. So
nice.
It's very. For me, it's more on. For now, it's career development, right?
Okay.
Finance courses there and there, and just developing in my career. But if you're talking about probably 20-year horizon, I'm thinking. I haven't decided yet, but I'm thinking. I want to go into the life of politics, right? And politics, not in the campaigning sense, but I would love to be within Parliament. Especially elected would be a dream come true, right? But if not, then I would, I'll do it the hard way, because I feel that if we really want to develop Africa, and we truly love it as much as we say we do, we need to be serving the country at the highest level, because I realize that many of us people who are in quotes, educated a bit. We shy away from politics thinking, it's a dirty game. There are people who will do it. And without realizing, we are the very people that are causing Africa to die. Because we are leaving such responsibility to people who have literally no passion towards, right? We would rather be in NGOs. We want to go to the UN. We want to go to AU, right? But we don't want parliament. And I want to be one of those young people who are saying, look, I see the call, and I know it's a road that many do not want to take, but I want to inspire my fellow academics, my fellow entrepreneurs that, look, politics is not for people who have not gone to school. It's not for people who have not started businesses. Even you who have started a business, even you who has gone to school, politics is for you, because that's how America was built. America was built by bankers going into politics, right? It was built by lawyers like Obama becoming politicians, right? It's built by the academics. It's built by the wealthy, Donald Trump. It's built. You see, we shouldn't look at politics as it's for those people who know how to speak to the rurals. No, we should jump into the core. So I'm thinking that is the next level of my ambition to put my money where my mouth is. If I truly say I love Africa and I love Botswana the way I do, then I need to go out of my comfort zone and I need to serve.
No, I completely agree. And I guess my only problem with getting brilliant people like you and Boholo and Owendo, she was brilliant. It's like the landscape is the same, and trying to function or thrive within it, it's a problem. You kind of like have to play that peaceful game unless the whole thing was to change, all right? But I guess we can change it by getting into it. So you kind of like answered my question as I had it there. So we'll be really lucky to have you even as president. I promise. I'm not just saying. That would be really great, because then I know it's someone who actually wants to develop the country, who's more aligned with that, and they're not just aligned with what can I say such that I don't get in trouble, or I stay as silent as possible, or I do just what's required to get to the next step, which is what most of them are doing. We'll be really blessed to have you.
Thank you, my friend. I appreciate the support.
I appreciate the support. You coming on, the whole reason behind this podcast is to have conversations around that: politics, economics, religion, and culture, these things that are cornerstones of Africa, and seeing how they are cornerstones, but also they've been detrimental to a certain extent, and how do we have conversations around that, and how do we change that? So I'm really glad that you took the time to talk to me, and I'll be talking to you when you're president and before. Okay, bye. Thank you so much.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Sure.